all laughing when we went out. Hey, everybody! Yay, we're live. Hello, audience.
I can tell my dog joke.
Well, now we're on the air. So. Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin McLaughlin. I'm an artistic director for Stages Theater. Thank you so much for joining us for our community discussion on Woman of the World. We're really excited to have you here. We are streaming not only on YouTube, but also on Facebook Live and LinkedIn tonight. So however you're joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so appreciative to have you here. We're so appreciative of your support. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation about One of the World, but we really want to drive this conversation through your questions, through your response to the show, things you want to know. Please send those chats. If you're on YouTube, I'm not exactly sure how you send them through LinkedIn, but I'm sure there's a way. Through chatting, they'll get to our team who's backing us up behind the scenes. That's Greg Warrington and David Grease, who will get them to us. So please think of those questions, think of the things you want to know. I'm going to introduce our team that we have speaking tonight and talk a little bit about the show. And I'm just going to go around my squares. Off to my left, as I look at the screen, is our videographer, Peter Ton. Peter has done all of the video programming that Stages has put forward since summer, and he's an amazing human being. Hi, Peter. Peter, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, actually. Let's do that.
Hi, I'm Peter, and I actually am born and raised in Houston, Texas. I'm a first-generation American, and I went to school at Sam Houston State University, and I've graduated 5 years now, and now I'm here.
Really great to have you, Peter. On my other side, in sharing space at the top of my screen, is our stage manager. Has stage managed much for us, but stage manager for One of the World, Ashley Ginn. Ashley, introduce yourself. Where are you from? How long have you been in Houston?
I'm Ashley. I've been in Houston almost my whole life. I was born here, but we moved around a lot when I was little. And I graduated from UH in 2013.
Yay. Next up, I have our technical coordinator on site. Our on-site technical coordinator is that I'm not exactly sure what title we actually ended up giving you, Maria, but the wizard who made all the technology work on site, Maria Edmondson.
Hi, I'm Maria Edmondson. I share a name with Sally Edmondson because she's my mom, and I'm a native Houstonian, and yeah.
Awesome. And the star of the show, the star of the evening, the magnificent Sally Edmondson.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I, too, am a native Houstonian and been a part of Stages for many decades. And so happy to be here with you tonight and glad you're joining us and wanting to talk about a woman of the world.
So Sally, I'm going to start with you. It's done now. You know, that the arc has completed itself. Actors always have this. It's such a weird profession, right? It's such a weird profession for all of us. We get in there, we work our tails off, we dig out this story, we tell this story, we share this story for a certain period of time, and then we walk away from it. And it's always that. Like the day a show closes is always that weird, sad. It's just such a strange set of emotions when a show closes. But this is so different, right? I mean, this essentially closed for you weeks ago, and now this. I'd love for you to reflect a little bit on the whole of the experience with Mabel. Now that you're kind of letting Mabel go now. Like how's this journey been, and where are you on that? Where are you on this journey?
Yes, well, I have to agree. I mean, the end of a show is really like a funeral almost. I mean, I usually go through a period of grief because I've been living with this person or whoever it is I'm playing for quite some time, and they've been jostling around in my imagination and world, and suddenly it's like they're gone, or they're no more, well, or they're no longer required. They're not that, I mean, I'm not pulling them up again, but they're still there. And so it really is like losing a very dear friend. Interestingly, with Mabel, I'm in this weird, and this is very unusual. I'm in this sort of weird state where I don't feel like I'm done with her.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. She still figures in my dreams, or she'll still figure, because I have not let go of her, because I'm keeping all body parts crossed that I get to do her live whenever we can, maybe, you know.
So
Yeah, that's right. I haven't let go of her yet.
yeah, that was going to be my question. Is that, do you think it's because your kind of kinesthetic experience of theater is different in that, and so that you've come to a place in your career where you understand how to. I love that word, that they're not gone. They're not required. That's so magnificent, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's you've got a practice that actors develop over time as a theater artist, but you're not actually initiating that practice right now, right? As a film person,
yeah,
right? Is that part of it, or is it really that you really that eventually it needs to happen on stage? Like,
well, I don't. How do I say this? Because I mean, I am. I mean, how we created her, and created this project, is very valuable, and yet I sort of feel a little half baked. Do you know what I mean? I feel I don't want to, because that's not a comment on the. I mean, it is what it is, but I sort of don't feel like I've gotten her fully out of my system, or even into, maybe even into my system.
so interesting, Sally. I was having this conversation with somebody. I watched the show again yesterday, because it was like, oh, the clock's running out. I can only see it one more time, or a few more times. So I watched it again yesterday, and I was having a conversation with our neighbors who watched it, and thinking about what it would be to do the play live, like how much more data and information you get in the
Yeah.
feedback loop that you didn't have coming at you this time, right? You didn't have a feedback loop.
Exactly.
So perhaps, do you think that has something to do with the sense of incompleteness? Maybe. I don't know.
Yes, because I'm not a film actor, so I've done very little film. So I don't have a backlog of experience of what it's like to perform it with no reaction, with no response. So since my experience for 40 plus years is to always have, even if they're not, even if it's very quiet, you're picking up on energy. And I'm having done it this way, I realize how integral for a stage actor that energy is. I mean, it's us, it's you and me. I mean, you can have a play without a theater, a director, or a script, music, costumes, but you got to have the actor, and you got to have an audience. Or performance, something. Anyway,
well,
yeah,
it's right. It's the key is the relationship, right? The closing.
Yeah.
I always talk about the closing of the circle in that room, and
Yeah.
we closed that circle in a different way this time. One of the questions popped up, Sally, was just how hard was it? Like the if you take like when did we decide we were doing this? I think June, right? And then we filmed in July. So
Yeah.
your window to put it together was relatively short.
Yes.
And then rehearsal through filming was short.
Yes.
So the question that's being asked is how would you rate this on the scale of difficulty for yourself compared to other projects?
About a 9.5. Seriously, this is one of the hardest things I've ever done, because, well, first of all, the script is extremely dense. I mean, just the research, just getting under the hood was wonderfully challenging. but but she's not a quick read. I mean, she's not a oh well, I get her, at all. So there's that. Then I'm rehearsing via Zoom. So I have no one. I mean, I think I told this in one of our conversations that my sweet Maria was running lines with me one time and started laughing, and I kind of looked at her. I was like, "Are you laughing at me?" She said, "No, Mom, you're funny." So I had no idea. I mean, she's like, "Mabel's funny," she's amusing, but yeah. So that's odd. And then we rehearsed, as you know, I mean, here it was so condensed that I didn't. Well, somebody asked me were you nervous or how? It's like I didn't have time to be nervous. You know what I mean? I didn't have. It was just go. And there's a part of that's not all bad, because it's great to kind of what's the word, warm up those muscles that you go with your first instincts, and so it keeps you real clean, but or very spontaneous, but yeah, it was hard, and still I don't think I've ever done a play like that and not been off book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, never. And I don't like that. I don't like that.
So you're giving away a secret. We're going to actually talk about. I'm going to jump to Peter and Maria and Ashley for a sec on some of the questions that are popping up. But we're going to come back to this question. A secret giveaway is that Sally actually. So here was the deal we made, and just for context, dear audience. So Sally had just come off of playing Anne in Fayetteville. So she had put Ann Richards back in the tank and was doing an amazing production of Fayetteville when COVID hit. And then I convinced her to, oh, let's do Mabel in this window. And in fact, she's actually going back to photograph Anne for Fayetteville. They had shut it down before it was finished. So she has Ann Richards as a bookend human being with Mabel Lewis in the middle.
It's sort of the sublime and the ridiculous. I mean,
So one of the deals we made was that Sally could use a teleprompter, which she did, but you can't tell if you look at it, you can't tell that you're getting cues. I don't believe that you even relied on it, Sally. I don't believe it. La la la, I don't want to hear it. But
I didn't a whole lot. I really didn't.
You didn't.
But there are some periods where
maybe a check-in, but it was you had it. I mean, and that's. Yeah. It goes to that idea of just kind of leaping, like you just kind of leapt, in the midst of all that was going on, which is just, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, and I'm so happy with the way it turned out. And one of the questions we have, Peter and Maria and Ashley, ultimately, Peter, talk a little bit about how we did it. Like, how was it put together? Was it 3 cameras? Was it multiple? People want to know, was it multiple takes? How did you do it?
So we had a 1-camera setup, and Joel Burkholder and I, the technical director, we figured out a way to actually connect the camcorder into Zoom, so that way the director and the whole production team could see the actual shot we were framing remotely in their homes. And we did that with a green screen and added in the picture of the set in later. And it was actually multiple takes, so we had to do all the show in one angle and then do the reset and do the show in another angle, and etc.
So when you guys each take was a full run of the show. You didn't go in and say, now we're coming to this angle. You shot the whole show from one shot, set up another shot, shot the whole show. Is that what you're saying? How you did it?
Yeah. Well, we did the full center shot all in one take, and then we found it was easier for workflow for all of us to do separate chunks for the other angles. We just needed to make sure that we were overlapping some scenes so that I was able to cut around and made it look like one take at the end product.
And Peter, just explain a little bit, so if people don't really quite know how green screen works and why we chose to do green screen. Because in fact, everybody look at Sally's square right now. That's where Sally did the show from. She's sitting in the exact spot she did the show from. And we put the whole, well, Maria, let's be clear, Maria created and we put some tricks in. But Peter, how does green screen work?
So green screen is basically a green sheet or screen fabric or whatever, and we put that as a background, and we evenly lit it. And then I went through in post. It's green so that I can easily delete the green and then add in another picture or scenery behind her.
And somebody asked me earlier about, it's like a Zoom background. I mean, it's the same thing, but the reason we want this technology is the bleed. Like, there's all sorts of things that don't happen with the green screen, right?
Yeah, and Zoom is really finicky with its with like keying, so deleting out the person. So things like arms and stuff, it will delete because it will only read your face. And the way we did the green screen is that I can actually take that recording instead of having Zoom process it in the moment, and actually getting a clean cut so it looks like she's in that actual room.
And Maria, so talk about what you actually did, and reference, if you want to reference your mom's study there, like, but what did you like? What? It's amazing the role you play. Talk about it.
Well, I will say that my background is very much not in technical theater. It's in the more artistic side, the producerial side. So it was not my comfort zone. But the team at Stages basically made a video for me to walk me through every single step that I had to do, and packaged up all of the costumes, the set, the lighting equipment, the technology, and brought it to my house for me to set up. So I put up a big green screen in the back on kind of a step and repeat, like hanger kind of a thing, lit that, and then set up the camera, set up the teleprompter on the camera, which was the hardest thing that I did for some reason. Set up a microphone, set up 3 lights, adjusted the lighting with the lighting designer guiding me through which angle needed to be cooler, which needed to be warmer, the levels. So I did all of that in terms of setup, and then basically just press record. And fortunately, Peter and Joel, the technical director, were not only there, but very patient and really walked me through all the
Maria,
steps.
do you feel like you have a calling now? Like do you want to go into being film production now, or is this was this a one-off?
This was a really special thing for everyone to see my only tech job. I think I'm just going to leave it there.
Well, I can just a quick. I will say, and I'm her mother, but I got to tell you, I would never, and I know Maria very well, I would never have known that she was as stressed out as she was in terms of how she behaved. She was so professional, and I mean, I would have been screaming every expletive in the book, and she was terrific, and she just stayed right on it, and it was wonderful too for me, because it's a whole new whole new ball game for me, and to have somebody that's that calm around me was really soothing, So, and
just for clarity's sake, one of the things that we at Stages, the reason we made these choices, a lot of it has to do with the Actors Union and the Actors Union contracts, and what you're able to do now. The union is still not releasing contracts for professional performance. So even if we did want to gather, we actually can't gather professional actors yet. And so there's a lot of reasons that and the union did work with us. I don't mean to, I really meant, we are working together, and they're making really great choices for their members. And in this case, protecting Sally and protecting her home life and protecting her health. And so Maria being there inside in lockdown with her and having the, love of theater that she does, it just kind of was this angel protecting us moment. That worked out really well. And Ashley, you've been, so as stage manager, what role did you play in terms of, like, you never left your house, you did this as a stage manager as best you could, like how did it work for you?
It was really interesting. I mean, normally during shows, I'm calling cues for light and sound and things like that. And for this, it was much more, so not behind the scenes, but a further step back, I guess. My main thing that I was doing during filming was running the teleprompter from my laptop while I was trying to keep an eye on Sally.
So you were running the
desktop.
teleprompter, you were running for it.
And just from my house. And it took a little finagling to make sure it was running at the right speed on Sally's end.
So I mean, there was a team, there's a whole team of people just kind of pushing this forward. That is just, it's just, it takes a village, and even in this particular case. So there's a question here about historical accuracy. So what we know about historical accuracy, was the play, from what we know about Mabel, how, from your understanding and your research, how historically accurate was the play, and how much was licensed? Do you have an answer on that one?
It seemed to me that it was extremely accurate, and I think Rebecca Gilman did tremendous research. And what's interesting is that because of, I don't want to, I mean, I'm presuming everybody on this has seen it, so I don't want to, no spoiler alerts, but it seems to me from everything I've read that Mabel has been an unknown for so long because of this terrible adversarial relationship between the Dickinsons and her. And so a lot of the letters and research materials that anybody that wanted to study up on Mabel and her relationship with Austin Dickinson, a lot of that's just been released. So for Rebecca to jump on this wagon and recognize what a fascinating character or just person this was, and what an integral role she played in bringing the world Emily Dickinson, and nobody's ever heard of her. And Ken, you mentioned this again in another talk, and I've really been thinking about this. That is such an interesting tack, and to me it's so Rebecca Gilman to explore these shining, fascinating, vibrant people that no one knows about, but they're like in the background of extremely famous or important historical figures, whatever. And I think it's a brilliant choice. I also think she's extremely timely. So, I mean, I'm getting off the question, but yeah, no, I think the research is, I think it's very accurate.
Yeah, anything that it follows the public record perfectly.
Like, I mean, everything I've read.
I think the important part, I love what you said, Sally, to point out that this is all relatively, sometimes history takes a long time to show up.
It does. Yeah.
It's out, and it depends. I always felt this about the play. And watching it yesterday, I realized that I might have been, grafting a little of my own perspective on it. But, I feel like the play has something to say about who gets to tell your story, how narratives get framed, and in a patriarchal culture, a strong, sexually powerful woman is in history, like where are those stories, and when we get those stories, the women are so demeaned, and here's a woman, a very powerful female voice writing, here's a very powerful female voice speaking and saying, I'm claiming my narrative. I'm taking it back from the ash can of a patriarchal history, and see, and think about if we really reframe Emily Dickinson through this lens.
Exactly.
We allow Emily Dickinson to be reframed through female voices, in a certain way. And then go ahead, Sally. Go
Well,
ahead.
no, what I was going to say, just to piggyback onto that, what's really interesting, and again, there's a lot of scholarship coming up on this, is who deserves the credit for Emily Dickinson's work. I mean, it's not clear that, no one quite knows what Mabel's influence was and what her input was. And that, perhaps, shocking that it could be is that maybe she improved it. I mean, I don't know, but these are things that are being explored, and I think that's fascinating.
Well, it leads to my next point. My next question, though, it's what makes it truly fascinating as a piece of theater. However, is here's a character who's a little, she plays a little fast and loose with the way she tells the story herself. The way in which she just, so it does open up these questions about personal narrative as well. Like what do you believe? And Sally, I know your journey included a period where you didn't like her. Yeah. She's certainly not the most likable of human beings. No. She certainly desires to hang on to something that someone else has. There's stuff you're asking about her motivations all the time, actually.
Oh, yeah.
What was your journey with her in terms of coming to care about her?
Well, I began to, what the part of her that I found really difficult to sort of warm up to is her incredible self-confidence and willingness to share how fabulous she is. Or felt that she was. But the more I read about her, I began to realize that she basically, she says this later, but she says, it's just because I've always had to toot my own horn. I mean, she didn't say it exactly in those terms, but I started realizing that she feels the need to promote herself because she has all these gifts. She does not come from a moneyed background, or she has no financial support backing. And so in an odd sort of way, she is like early in marketing. She's sort of a precursor of marketing and the marketing programs that we have today. And but anyway, yeah. I mean, I just started thinking about three things. What was your question, or what was the main? Because I had something else.
Like how you came to feel about
Oh, yes.
You started out.
Yeah. So I really, and I mean, I know I said to you, I said to Seth, I said, full disclosure here, I really don't. Right now, I just really don't like her. But once I got under the hood and started understanding where this was coming from, and it really was deep. I mean, I say it all when I say about my father. Maybe if we just stopped pretending to greatness, maybe the shame would have dissipated. And I mean, to live a life where you're pretending, and the whole thing is pretend. I mean, even her long affair with Austin, she's having to pretend that it's not happening. And then after he dies, nobody, like there's no evidence. And then she's being cut off from the one thing that actually gave her a voice, which was editing Emily's poetry. And finally, I think she's just tired. I think that's finally what this sort of creeping importance and connection with nature, it starts giving her a solace that she never felt. And that's to me, that's the fascinating. I mean, to end up there, from where we start. I just think Rebecca Gilman has just done a tremendous job. Again, but yeah, it's I just adore her.
She is absolutely positively one of my favorite playwrights. I mean, I just think she's the way in which she explores a whole host of issues. I mean, you named it, like that whole issue about aspiring to grandeur is a social critique of capitalism. I mean, she manages to get these critiques in there that are so subtle and yet so incisive. I'm going to draw Maria. I'm going to actually go back to you for a second. Audience fans, Maria has an incredible background actually in dramaturgy as well, and worked for the Arena Theater for a couple of years, right, Maria, in working with new work at the Arena Theater. So I'm going to kind of bounce you and say, in terms of women who are writing today, like female playwrights, can you maybe talk a little bit about how we're seeing, I think, field-wise, an amazing emergence of strong and powerful female writers, and how Rebecca fits in that canon, and what you're seeing going on for women writing in the theater now.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm a few years away from my dramaturgy work, so I fear that I'm a little, it moves fast, so I'm a little out of date in my knowledge, frankly. But I think that we do see theaters who have made, the historical theatrical canon in this country and everywhere is so predominantly male. And what we've seen is that theaters have really committed to producing women's work. And I think it's really shaping modern American theater. And I do think that this going back through history as a way of, there have been women's stories and important women throughout. And so it's a way now for contemporary playwrights to kind of go back and say, oh, but there we were. And there we were, just as we're here now. It's kind of, it's not revisionist history. It's like correcting history. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing a bunch of amazing playwrights, young female playwrights, some of whom, like my contemporaries, my friends, who are now getting to work in big places and getting new opportunities that have not always been kind of a given for female playwrights.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about. It's a fascinating. You think about how the world. I love that you said it's changing so fast, and the way in which access is changing so fast to voices, and yet it's to really reflect on how limited the perspectives and the representations have been in the American theater for so long. Yeah. Like it really, those representations, those voices we're only talking maybe 15, 20 years. And we're still not seeing the equity on our stages across the country that are more representative of our communities. It's such an interesting challenge, and I think people like Rebecca, who've been writing these powerful works, her first work, Spinning in a Butter, was just done, worldwide. And that play is 25 years old now, maybe 20 plus years old. Boy Gets Girl, powerhouse play about stalking. 20 years old. She was really pushing this envelope 20 years ago, and really blazing a trail that is now being taken up by amazing. Sally, I have one last question here, and then I'm sure there may be more, but this one I'm gonna throw you a curveball. But someone had just thrown this curveball to me in an earlier conversation today, so I'm gonna throw it to you, which is, in this moment where as a nation we are reflecting the loss of one of the most incredible women who ever served our nation, and no matter how you feel about it, this was a dedicated human being to justice, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mm-hmm. And someone actually said, had seen Woman of the World, and then asked me this question and said, do you see any kind of like in the kind of championing of humanity that Ruth Bader Ginsburg did? How do you think Mabel, like if Mabel Loomis Todd and Ruth Bader Ginsburg met, like how do you loop? Like they said, Ken, do you see? I see. All I could think of was all the day watching it today was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I thought, wow, I hadn't really made those connections. Do you like? Are there any connections you would make to a powerhouse, world-changing woman and this woman? And maybe there aren't any. I don't know, but I got to ask that question.
Well, I think Mabel. Well, I certainly think Mabel, because Mabel was like a I don't know, quintuple threat. Because not only was she artistic, but she was really smart. And in addition to beauty and all of this, as a young, I mean, so she's got a big treasure trove of gifts. And my guess is that she would greatly admire Ruth, and would understand very deeply what it took to juggle pursuing your dream with or balancing it with a husband, children, and I think from that respect, I think Ruth, I mean, she loved opera. I think she would probably get a big kick out of have gotten a big kick out of Mabel. I don't know that they would maybe have shared the sort of libertine approach to marriage and their sexual lives, but I have to say, again, it's not like Mabel's some wanton woman of the world. I mean, she's very monogamous in her liaison. I mean, it's not liaisons, so it's not like she's profligate like her husband. But yeah, that's an interesting question, because they are certainly yeah, that's interesting. Okay, because I was just reading. So Ruth, gosh, you know what? That is really a brilliant thing for us to kind of cogitate, because so Ruth became or got on the Supreme Court in '93, and I think it was around '93. When did Emily die? '88. So it's sort of 1888. So they were sort of coming into their own about 100 years apart.
No.
That's interesting. I had
it just was one of those ones that was. I'm gonna ask Sally that question. So that I got asked that question. I want to do. You guys have all reminded me. So I'm gonna do a book plug of a book I read last week. If you can find it, it's called The Equivalents. By Maggie Dougherty. It's out now. It's on the. I'm not sure if it's on the bestseller list or not, but it is about essentially the Radcliffe Institute, and it's the first. Essentially, explores the first class, and 5 women in those first 2 years of the Radcliffe Institute, which was essentially a program for women who had kind of gone into domestic life, but had this incredible need to continue and stay connected to academia and to pursue those things, motherhood plus academics. And it follows 5 of the original people, 2 of which were Anne Sexton and Maxine Kumin. So, and it really deeply explores their friendship. It's a spectacular book, but it really reminded me a lot about this conversation in terms of women's voices, how relatively recent it is in our world that women are finding their way to platforms where we can actually hear the story openly and fully. And so I highly recommend it. A great book.
Great. That sounds great.
All right. So any idea Any idea when we could come back to the Gordy? Oh, that question. Oh, I wish tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. If I had my druthers, this answer is driven ultimately not by a lot of factors, not just our desire to come together again. And one of the biggest factors has to do when we can actually hire actors again. And when we can hire actors and bring audiences to actors, and that we do work with the Professional Actors Union, and we are working with them to solve that question, but we are not there yet. And so until we can actually do that work, and until we can actually solve some of those questions with our partners in Actors Equity, we will not be reconvening. And also, our numbers are just not where they need to be for a group of human beings to gather in a room. They're just not there yet. So we are every single day working to make that happen. We are working really hard to make that happen. So I'm hopeful that we're going to be back there soon. I really do wish I had a better answer. I do. And the minute we can, we will be. That's like, I can tell you that. And the other thing I can tell you is that we're not going to stop trying to reach you in other ways. And I'm looking at Peter, who has just been like, Peter has, folks, when you want to know how we've kept it together, it's that man right there who has been so remarkable and selfless. Started as an intern with us, for crying out loud, and has just dedicated so much to helping us get through this with his expertise, but also people like Maria just stepping up and saying, yes, I'll do that. I'll wade into the unknown to make this work. Ashley completely changing the way she does things, and Sally in this in between and the sandwich moment. So it does take a lot of people committed to connecting to you, and we have those folks, and we have more of them. So I'm really grateful for the question. I promise we're working on it with all of our souls, and I really am thankful that you're staying connected with us in this way.
Yeah.
Let me see. Have I done all my questions? I think there have been several comments coming through. Sally was wonderful. Sally, you are amazing. Love you.
Oh, thank you.
We're getting stuff like that. Last question. And then before we clock out, you've been doing this a long time, right? Like you've had this amazing opportunity to play so many things. And I know as an artist, sometimes you go back and you reflect and you kind of categorize things. Where's Woman of the World going to land? This film project, COVID film project, Woman of the World, for now, going to land in the canon of your experiences. How do you think you'll remember it 5 years from now?
Wow. I have been so incredibly lucky that in 42 years of doing this wonderful, crazy career, I have really never, unless I've reprised a role, I've never really played the same kind of character. I've not been pigeonholed. And I have to say that Mabel is like really all of these wonderful women that are, roam around my head. She is very much in a class of her own. She is, there's a historical, social, artistic, human scope that she embodies that, and she's intelligent. That's unlike anybody I've ever played. I couldn't compare her to Mame or Queen Elizabeth or Daisy, Miss Daisy, or Malin or Anne. Even Deanna. They're all so. I'm just so grateful to get to play these really unusual, strong women who find their voice, find that we go on the journey with them, usually in the play, of finding who they are. And I think that's very empowering to women, to watch, and maybe to men too. But I she's in her own slot.
I love it. Last, I'm going to give a shout out to you, Maria Joy Horick Brown, who you interned at New Hope Housing some years ago. She was the CEO. She says it's good to see you again.
Hi, Joy. Boy, it's been about, well, I won't say. It's been a while.
Well, Joy, thank you for being here, and thank you everybody for being here. Sally, from the bottom of my heart and for everyone at Stages, bravo. Just one of your finest, and just thank you for all that you do for us. Having the most amazing time going off to meet Anne again. I'm sure that I suspect that we might meet Anne again. Who knows? But everybody out there, thank you for staying with us. Thank you for celebrating with us. Thank you for sharing in this work. Peter, Ashley, Maria, and Sally, thank you for this conversation and this time. Have a great evening, everybody. And until we see Mabel again, fare thee well, Mabel.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.